Lord, open my lips,
and my mouth shall declare your praise. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and will be forever. Amen. Hallelujah, hallelujah.
Give glory to God, our light and our life.
Oh God, let us worship Him.
All right, we are going to do the last stanza of All Glory Be to God Alone. We'll sing the last stanza, and then we will learn probably not a new melody, but maybe an unfamiliar one a little bit.
When Pastor Shaw was here, we sang 2 stanzas.
You sang 2 stanzas? Well,
He let us.
since the pastor went a little long this morning, he just kept one, so we'll have to deal with it. You only are the Holy One, and over all alone. Oh, Jesus Christ, we glorify you and the Spirit, Lord Most High. Within you evermore shall be one in the Father's majesty. All right. Sydney, would you mind turning the lights off for me for just a second? Thank you. So this is a picture. It's got all kinds of stuff in it. This is a picture from the Sistine Chapel, which is in Rome, but this is a picture of Jesus giving Peter a great big key. You see that? Or maybe 2 keys, isn't it? And that's from our gospel this morning, where Jesus says, after Peter confesses, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God," Jesus says, "Flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. You are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church." And then later on he says, "Whatever you loose shall be loosed in heaven, and whatever you bind shall be bound in heaven." Bound in heaven. And that kind of gets us to this key thing. When we talk about keys in church, most of the time we're talking about forgiveness. Did you know that? We even have a part of the catechism called the office of the keys, because of this word loose, whatever you loose. Because you know how the Bible wasn't written in English, right? You know the Bible wasn't written in English? Nothing from the smart Alex in this corner. The Bible was written in Greek, and the word for loose is the same word as the word forgive. Isn't that crazy? The word for loose is the same word as the word for forgive. So when we forgive somebody their sins, we are releasing or loosing or letting their sins go. We're not holding on to those sins. Because, you know, if somebody does something against you, you kind of want to hold it against them. You want to keep that on them. But forgiveness means to loose or to release or to let go. And so this is the authority that Jesus gives to the church to forgive sins, which is kind of a big deal. And we will talk about that maybe more next week. All right, you can have one of the lights, please, Sydney. Let us pray. Almighty God, whom to know is everlasting life, grant us to know your Son Jesus to be the way, the truth, and the life, that we may boldly confess him to be the Christ and steadfastly walk in the way that leads to life eternal. Through the same Jesus Christ, our Lord, who lives and reigns with you in the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Let us bless the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
The Almighty and merciful Lord, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, bless and preserve you.
Amen.
Sunday school is off and running. We have regular Sunday school starts next week. And I think Mrs. Eric didn't have a word to say.
Oh, regular starts next week.
Right, regular starts next week. Please.
Notice that I have various postings here. There's a Sunday school meeting Tuesday. I also put a letter in each teacher's box. And right now I'm getting ready to email you too. So I have everybody's email.
Triple threat.
Right. So it's this Tuesday, 6:30.
You took down the little list of Sunday school teachers.
I'm going to make a new one.
I know, I just want to know who's my partner teacher so I can talk.
Okay, it's in the secretary's room there.
Okay, great, I'll check. Thanks.
I'm going to post it back up there when I finish typing.
Very good. Thank you, Diane. And so, Sunday school, up and off you go with Mrs. Bell. Please make sure that you pick up all of your trash and throw it away on your way out, so that you do not leave a trash in your wake. Yes.
So just regular Sunday school starts
Next week. Regular Sunday school starts next week. When does regular Sunday school start?
Next week.
Okay, just checking. All right. Slowly but surely we are ramping things up. Wednesday, as usual, Dulos. Thursday morning begins on my birthday, September 7th. So not this Thursday, but the Thursday following. And that week of the following is more or less when all of the classes are starting. Deaconess's classes, I think, are you starting the first one on the 6th? Yeah, so the Wednesday one starts on September 6th, and then the Monday group starts the following Monday, which would be the 11th, I think. Yeah, the 11th, because you're not starting the next day, because you're not crazy. So, not this time. Excellent. And then Lifelight and Lincoln Hill, they're still on break, but I see a handy note. Lifelight begins on Tuesday, September 5th.
Yes.
Tuesday, September 5th. Got it. And Lincoln Hills, does Lincoln Hill start on the 7th, or is it the week following?
I believe the week following.
I think it's the week following.
I think it's it. And is that Sorrells?
Yeah, and it's at the Sorellis. Thank you. I will make sure to have that info for sure. This is this little seminar that Doxology is putting on, that we are, Holy Cross is co-hosting with Trinity in downtown Sacramento. It is at Trinity. And I really can't encourage you too much to try and figure out a way to be able to go to this. The topic is culture, sexuality, and the church in an age of too much information. So that is a mouthful of stuff. How many of you saw Rockland make it into the national news this week? Yeah, we had all kinds of fun at Rockland Academy, which I was mistaken, it was not the one that's right down across the street from us, but the one that's over off of Blue Oaks. But still not far, where a kindergarten, a teacher had brought a group of, had basically said, bring a book from home and I'll read it to the class.
This actually happened at the end of the school year last year.
Right, right. And this is finally kind of coming out now. One of the books was a very pro-lesbian book.
No, transgender.
Transgenderism, thank you.
Because there was a transgender kindergarten.
Yes, because they have a transgender kindergarten. So this is in Rockland. This is not in, crazy land. This is in, nice little suburban, safe, conservative Rockland, or whatever you want to think it is. So these topics and questions are really literally kids and grandkids go to these schools, and kind of this is the world we live in. And so please make a point of trying to join us for this event. It is on Saturday, September 9th. I will start a handy sign-up sheet going around. You guys will be in France, so I'll give you a pass, just this once. It is on Saturday, September 9th. And for anyone who wants to carpool down to Trinity, we'll meet here at 8:45. And then we will carpool down together. There's some parking by the church. There's also a very good parking garage that's about half a block away, just around the corner. So that will work. Does anybody have any questions on that, on this event coming up? Larry?
Somebody asked it last week, I believe. Is this going to be posted online?
And I don't know the answer to that yet. I gotta ask them. I'm gonna say probably. I know that Bruce has offered to videotape it, so I just have to verify with Dr. Senkbeil and Woodford that they're good with that. So I'm gonna say probably, but I don't know for sure yet. Okay, does anybody have any other questions about
The
this?
date on that again, is it the 9th?
It is Saturday, September 9th.
9:30.
9:30 to 4. Yeah. Yeah, I'm very excited about it. It's just kind of all lined up. And then we will have, Dr. Senkbeil will be here with us on Sunday morning. Pastor Woodford is going to be preaching at First Lutheran in Placerville that morning. And then Dr. Senkbeil and Woodford are going to help us with the pastor's retreat. Our church has a little pastor's retreat, and they're going to help us with that. So we're going to make it work for the weekend. It's good for them. This was a kind of a crazy idea. Seth, why don't you get the light for me for a second, and I'll fix that for next time. And basically what this is every third Thursday this year, we're gonna meet at Out of Bounds Brewing Company, which is about 176 yards that way. You know, it's right on the other side of Pacific. And we've reserved a room, and we're going to drink libations, either Lutheran or otherwise, and talk theology, and kind of whatever you want to talk about. Anything is open. So that will be Thursdays from 7. They close at 9, so 7 to 9. And the first one is on Thursday, September 21st. Thursday, September 21st. So found out that the bartender, when we were talking to him about this, was a Lutheran. So we'll of some stripe at least. So we'll have a good time. It'll be fun, and anyone is welcome for that along the way. Is anybody here to do the Academy Minute? I know that Chris and Kim are both gone. I think I would probably wait for that for next week. Can you hit the light for a second, Seth? Thank you. So we will talk more about the Academy for next week. Does anybody else have any other announcements? Rick?
Just quickly, I got a call last Thursday. Again, the church was open in the afternoon, 4 o'clock. And all the lights were on in the sanctuary. So just a note, please, if you get into the church, please be sure that you're responsible for getting out and locking the church. Check the lights. Make sure the air conditioner, if you turn it up while you're in, please turn it back down when you leave.
All right. Give us just a moment while I help Pastor Lange set up. I am off, so you should be able to turn on the TV. For those of you who are not at first service, this is my friend Pastor Mike Lange. Pastor Lange is from our district office in Livermore, and he is the director of our district's mission agency, which he will explain far better than I could in just a moment. All right, we'll get there once we get ourselves up and rolling. We're still not seeing you in here. Now you are rolling, and you're good to go. Welcome.
Okay, thanks.
Maybe on the, yep. Hey, good to be with you today. I think sometimes I do a little bit of a Bible study leading in. One of the things that I found out is sometimes it's better just to do Bible study as things present themselves, and rather than try to make a connection there. And we've had a good opening already. Certainly, as we've looked at that through hymnody and prayer, and also the opening sentences. So I'd like to just introduce myself. My name is Mike Lange. I've been in our district for about 24 years. I came originally as a missionary at Lange back in late 94, so that doesn't make, it's about 23 years. Late 1994. And I came, worked for the planting of a church in Dixon, California. And but I was missionary at Lange in that region. We worked at that for a couple of years, and at that point, the district had a Partners in Mission, which was its mission committee at that time. And some of you may be aware of that. That was how it was out of that committee that Holy Cross was born many years ago, and a few years before that. So I was called through the district office to be a missionary at Lange, and was working at a church plant there for a couple of years, then transitioned to Brentwood, California, to complete a church plant that had been begun there. The church had not been organized yet. There was a group gathered, and it was just simply deemed that my energies were needed down there. So for a time, I did both places. Prior to that, I was pastor of a church in Minnesota for about 7 years. Large Lutheran church with a school, and so it had a variety of different things that I did there. In fact, Evan, who is Pastor John Paul's son-in-law, was principal of the school not far north of ours. But that was a few years after I was there. So Evan's just a little bit younger than I am. So I am husband of one, Christy, father of 4 adult children. Celebrated 29 years in ministry just a few weeks ago, and have been a missionary at Lange and associate, senior, every kind of pastor you could name during that time. Including that missionary at Lange, and then presently serve full-time in the district office. My official title is I'm assistant to the president for advancement of mission work. But I head up our church's mission agency. I want to talk with you a little bit about this. The work of the CNH District's mission agency, and it does belong to the CNH District. In the 2012 convention, which was in Birmingham, we, as a group, came together and said we need to put missionary action, if you will, the cause of those who are not yet gathered, as a priority. What was happening is, for many years, our church body had been sponsoring a variety of types of evangelistic and mission work, but increasingly it was a smaller and smaller portion of our time, our energy, our resources. And so one of the purposes for this was just simply to say, how can we, if you will, set apart work that is specifically for those who are not yet gathered to Christ Church. So the work of the mission agency is specifically, if you can see down below, my daughter did a wonderful job with these slides, making them look better, but some things are not so easily read. So walk together with the baptized, remembering that this is God's mission. So walk together with the baptized, recognizing that we're talking about all of God's people. We're talking about, yes, pastors, and yes, teachers. We're talking about the baptized. And recognizing that all of us as baptized have opportunity, possibility to be witness in word and deed, even in our vocation. In many ways, I look at this as pushing on and reawakening just a sense of what is our vocation as Christians. So, the work of the mission agency, that's who we are, that's what we do. What does that look like? See if I can get this forward. A little bit of trouble with There we go. So there's a great opportunity in the Northern California area. Somebody asked me earlier, what does CNH stand for? Well, you are one of 186 congregations that are part of a group of LCMS congregations in a region called the California, Nevada, Hawaii District. We've been around since the 1860s, okay? When the first church was planted in San Francisco, California. And so you're part of that. In that period of time, 2 other districts have broken off that were part of that initial West Coast district. 2 other districts are the Pacific Southwest, which stretches from the Grapevine south and into almost all of Arizona. The other district is the Northwest District, which goes north of Crescent City and all the way up into those 2 northern states, Oregon and Washington, most of Idaho, and also Alaska. So a huge region, huge region. So those are what was originally the district that we are in now. So I just want to talk with you about the opportunity in the region that we are in. So in that area, there's 15 million plus. In fact, the number is actually closer to 15.8 million now in Northern California. 7.5 million of those live in the Bay Area. It is estimated, just a little bit to know about the Bay Area and how it continues to change. And this is not so much different than what's going on in Greater Sacramento as well. And that is by the year 2050, 1/2 of the population in the Bay Area will have been born somewhere else. Somewhere else than other in the United States. Okay, that is not so much different than the reality we have in Sacramento as well. Some are frightened about that. I have to tell you, as I continue to read and to look, to some degree, I'm really excited about what that means for God's church. Not just simply because there's opportunity, but because in many of these languages and cultures, we have immigrant churches, even immigrant Lutheran churches that come in and actually assist, encourage the culture that we're all in. And the Christian culture that comes from an immigrant population sometimes brings a sense of value and balance that we say, oh yeah, some of this sounds familiar to me. Okay? In other words, I'll just give you an example of this. A couple of my Ethiopian friends, one who is just ordained through Concordia Seminary, St. Louis, brings a balance of a constancy, or if you will, full-time worship that sometimes in the American culture we've lost a little bit. We've lost. We kind of compartmentalize this. This is my Sunday. And yes, I do my devotional time at different times of the week, but then I also have my me time, you know? And we lose track a little bit, not because we want to or because we really recognize that's our belief system. It's the practice of the culture that we're in. And that whole attitude of full-time worship is something that I'm very appreciative of Brahman and his focus upon who he is and what his life means in all of his vocation. So to go on, we have 1.5 million in Hawaii. We should really change that to about 1.7. 1.2 million, which are on the island of Oahu alone. Who's visited Oahu lately? It is an island that is tremendously urban at this point, especially on the western end. You know that in the islands of Hawaii, 220 plus languages and dialects are spoken. We only have 230 plus in all of the CNH district combined. Some would argue that it's larger than that, but that just kind of gives you an idea. By the way, we presently, in our California, Nevada, Hawaii district, our congregations minister in 12 different language groups, including American Sign Language. I praise God for that. I praise God for all those opportunities that we have to effect and be a sound and clear witness of Christ among the nations. But the reality is God has obviously trusts us because there's a lot more opportunity, isn't there? And I prefer to look at it that way rather than to say, oh, you got a lot of work to do. There's a big challenge in front of us. Is that, no, look what God's entrusted us to. Look where He's placed us. Look where He's placed us. It's a great opportunity, and so we follow the opportunities and doors that He opens. Our California Nevada white population is 40,000. It's shrinking and aging. It's not so uncommon with the rest of the especially mainline Christian churches, even evangelical churches, as we think about what that historically has meant, not what it's meant in the last 15 or 20 years, but evangelical churches, what that has historically meant. I might even say evangeliship, or some of you who understand German, but it's shrinking and aging. Our unchurched population is estimated at 80%, or even more. And in fact, it's probably more like 90%, because my fingers in this, it was really hard to divide out Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons, because in so many of our statistics, we just want to lump that all together. It's those Christians of every stripe, you know. So it's just understanding. So this is the opportunity. I like to say there's something we want to pay attention to here, that we want to make ourselves aware of all the time, and that is that all souls matter. All souls matter. He wills all men to be saved and come to the knowledge of the truth. What does that mean? What does that mean in virtue of our doctrine of election as well? And yet, see, this is the mystery of God. This is His heart's desire. And yet he knows those who will come to Him. But it is His heart's desire what? Christ died once for how many? All. The sacrifice for the new Arab family that lives around the corner from you, Christ made that once for all, and they were included in that. What does that mean? What are the possibilities? What does it mean that we can't see what God might do in the midst of all that? Those are some hard questions that we wrestle with, and yet again, this is part of the mystery of God, who we are. Any questions? Any questions this far?
Mike, I have a question.
Sure.
Your figure of 80% award, you kind of switched between unchurched and Christian. Is that Christian or totally unchurched?
Unchurched population is 80%. So, and that's why I said unchurched, and I said if we went to those who are not practicing Christians, as we define Christians in the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, we have to rise about another 8 to 10%. Does that make sense? Okay. Just understanding the context in which we live. What's going on? What are the opportunities? Yeah.
What is the growth trajectory of California relative to the rest of the country?
Yeah, we are not going to grow according to projections as quickly. We've often outstripped the rest of the United States. The growth projection of California still is above the average of the United States, and I can't tell you exactly, it's still above the average, but not to the degree that it has been in the future. But a lot of that growth is expected to come from an ongoing population that is, if you will, non-Caucasian. Okay, non-Caucasian. And it depends on where you're at. I just got a quick little story to tell you. I have a good friend named Sam Gomez, and Sam is out of Mexico City. And in about 12 years ago, maybe 15 years ago now, it's been quite a while, he began work with the Cross-Cultural Ministry Center in Irvine, California. And it is an alternate route to ordination, which he was able to get a master's degree. And he since has also received a doctorate. But Sam was a pastor out of Mexico City. And it came up and colloquialized, but also did it through receiving a master's degree at Irvine, which is, I said, an alternate route to the nation. So Sam runs a theological school specifically for Spanish speakers and people who are indigenous Spanish speakers, and he runs it down in the Pacific Southwest. And so we've been able to connect in with that a little bit with some of our folks who are looking for ongoing theological and missiological education. And it's coming from a Spanish speaker, an indigenous Spanish speaker, not, as my friend Aaron Putnam says, a gringo speaking Spanish. So, which is helpful. Well, believe it or not, you know, it's not just the accent, but it is also kind of the mindset of culture. So Eli Jimenez, who was worshiping, he and his family, at a tiny little church that we had in Wasco, California. Regrettably, Wasco closed about just a few months ago. But Eli Jimenez was running a theological school for a variety of different pastors who were pastors in a variety of different denominations who did not even have an eighth grade education. Now, obviously, they weren't LCMS Lutherans, so we get that. Eli has a tremendous heart to give sound theological education to all of these pastors who are doing this work. They're going to be doing it regardless. Okay? They're going to be doing it regardless. And to give sound theological education. So where did we go to get that? We sought out Trinity in Moscow, specifically because he had been told by the Spanish Institute that he had worked at in Southern California and got his bachelor's of theology, been told to seek out the LCMS Lutherans. Okay? And so he did. And then he got connected in with us, he got connected in with Sam, and so he's been through about 8 or 9 classes. And Eli and I were joking about how, he says, you know what the interesting thing is happening? He says, some of my brothers are becoming Lutheran pastors and they don't even know it. I got a big kick out of that. I don't know what God will do with all of that. I just simply know that continuing to invest in men like Eli is important. Why does he do what he does? It's not that, and ultimately the hope would be that Eli would become a Lutheran pastor and very specifically Lutheran educator. That's one of his hopes as well. But why do we invest in somebody like Eli Jimenez? Why do we risk the time before he's completely declared himself? Well, a big part of it is, as Eli says, the valley is full of Mexicans, Pastor Mike. And we've got to do something about it. There's a whole lot that don't have Jesus. And they certainly don't know the Jesus of the Bible. So it's I don't know what will come out of that. We don't invest a ton of time in that direction. But it's just, if you will, it's some of that cultivation on the edge, where we look at it. This is one of the things that we're able to do in missions, is cultivate those edges and see what God might do out of it. Okay, we have 165 years of history in the, let's see if I get this to come up. We have 165 years of history in our DNA, including decades of multiplicative growth. Now, what do I mean by multiplicative growth? I have another longer presentation that goes into a lot of detail with this, but what it basically means is, you know, the population grew by 5%, 7%, 10% in California at different, and on the West Coast at different times during our history, right? There were several decades from 1880 to about 1920 when we were always outstripping the population growth relatively. So if the population was growing at 8%, we were growing at 12 or 15. Okay? So we have, what does that mean? You don't grow that way only by, if you will, immigrant growth or having more children. You don't grow only in that way. So that what I'm saying to you is our district, our region has a history of, if you will, being evangelistic, of being missionary in the best of terms to those who are moving and connecting intentionally. Work in Sacramento began, by the way, far before Trinity Lutheran, which is our first Sacramento church. If I'm remembering correctly, and this is really taxing my memory, I believe it was 1885 that the church was initially planted. And it grew to over 100 congregants in about 5 years. It had to close because of a flood, and because many of the people who had made up the church, including the pastor, moved away. Okay? But 1885, that work was originally begun. And so you see that there was a history of God's people gathering together. Why did they gather together? They gathered together for the purpose of preaching the word and being blessed by the water, the word, the time, the sacraments, the promises that are there, of being God's people in their community, the called out ones. Okay? So this is a history. It's part of our DNA. I believe that we have a desire too. The desire to plant the gospel with those who do not yet belong to Christ is shared across generations and ethnic groups. This is just a fantastic thing to see. So another thing I regret that when I changed these slides, it didn't come up, but I got a picture of a man named Bruce, he's a layman, who has been part of about 20 different Lutheran church plants during the course of his life on the West Coast. Okay? And he met Dawit here about 2 years ago. Dawit is one of our planters who is on presently his second church plant. He planted an Eritrean church and now is replanting a cross-cultural, multicultural church in Haiti. Okay? And so the two of them met, and we stayed overnight at Bruce's house. This is Bruce hosted Dawid and I as we went to a conference. I thought I was never going to get Dawid out of there. It was like two brothers across generations. It was just a reminder to me that this desire to plant the gospel, to be gospel people crosses generations. It's not just about the young. It's not just about another generation. It crosses generations. So God is granting traction and increase momentum. We pray ongoing for that increase. I'm going to go one more slide and I'll stop again for some questions. So what's been going on since 2013? Why do I put that there? That's the year that the CNH Mission Agency was originally started. I came on staff that summer. But since that time, we've had 3 new church plants. That means established churches that were not churches before, that are churches now. There were something that was not there before. We've had 6 active new starts. And I've got a mission menu that's available if you're interested in looking at that outlines where and what these are. 6 active new starts. And these are places where ministry is going on. Some places it's evangelistic word-only ministry. Some places it's word and sacrament ministry. But 6 active new starts. We've got 5 different places where churches that were all but dead have been revitalized, and there is a restart. Okay. 2 of them that you might have heard of. One is First Lutheran in Hanford, California. Hanford is actually an anchor community down in the valley. It's an anchor economic community. And so we had a church there, and a preschool there too. And it fell upon hard times, and there was conflict, and there was all kinds of things going on within the church, and things that should not be happening in God's church, but sometimes they do. The church was down to about 15 people. They were selling off property just to try to pay salaries and to keep things going. What they finally did is they said, you know what, we have to take the risk of dying to do something different. And they became convinced of this. There was an opportunity where the pastor was able to take early retirement, and so they began again with support from a variety of different people. In the circuit, in our greater district, some conflict resolution work by Pastor Ron Youngdale. And so that church that was 15 in 2014 is now 85 on any given Sunday in 2017. And that's an example of a place that it wasn't a district program, it wasn't the mission agency, so to speak. It was who we are as the California, Nevada, Hawaii district saying, what does it mean to be God's church in this community? Let's take a relook at that. Let's help to work through conflict, to forgive, if you will, unlock, unbind, loose, all of those things that were binding us up here, and to begin anew. There's several different people that I say participated in that, but that's an example. And all the revitalization restarts have different stories to different degrees of success. One of them that we're also working on is in the island of Kauai. And I believe Timmy Hamilton has worshiped here a few times because I know he has family over here in this area, at least somewhere. So Timmy, I believe, has been here, really loves worshiping at Holy Cross. So another example is a revitalization restart that's in the island of Kauai. How many of you have visited Kauai? You've been to Puerto Beach.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a big Lutheran visitation area. So in Kaloa Town, at the old library, is St. Matthew's Lutheran Church. Okay? And they have been there for about 7 or 8 years. They almost died. Here about 3 years ago. They were right at the edge, and there were several things that can't go into the detail of it that were just not working out. Some of them, as it's really challenging to fund the situation over there and to fund the opportunity. One of the other problems is that the original church planter that was there did a fine job of gathering people, of teaching, catechizing, discipling people. But the challenge came into the fact that he was a tourist. Does that make sense? Most of our foreign missionaries are tourists. They're not indigenous. They don't belong there. And so what was the question to John? He says, we love what you're doing. When are you leaving? What do they mean by that? Did they want John to leave? No. They didn't want him to leave, but their experience was people just can't take this too long. We know they love it here. They can't make it work here finally. Within 3 to 5 years, they're going to be gone. Guess what? In a year and a half, because of a variety of different pressures, guess what? John was gone. And it's got a lot of different history to it, but John was gone. And so, in the meantime, God continued to work, and 2 young men were raised up. And both of them being relatively indigenous, not Hawaiian indigenous, but they grew up there. They belonged there. They were raising their families there. They belong on that island. In fact, if you ask people on the island of Hawaii, do you know Timmy Hamilton? Do you know Will Pierce? They'll tell, oh yeah, Will lives down in Kabah, right? Oh, Timmy, his family has lived up in Princeville and a variety of different places. I think he lives in Kilauea now. They know these guys. They have reputation there. So they're indigenous. This is one of the ways that we're trying to recognize the challenge there is when we parachute people in. It's costly, it's expensive, sometimes it's not productive very fast. And so in a mission model that is often thought of as a core mission model, we work with educating indigenous people. This last week, Will Pierce has been on Concordia Seminary St. Louis's campus as an SMP vicar, as he's just entering into the specific ministry program at Concordia Seminary St. Louis. Prior to that, under the bylaws of our synod, he was serving as a licensed lay deacon. He and Timmy both. He's transitioning now to be the pastor of that congregation. That is the desire of that congregation. It's his desire as well. So it kind of gives you an idea of what that might look like. Since we began also, we've had 4 mission conferences held in a variety of different places. The next one is March 17th. And March 17th will be a mission conference held at Our Savior's Lutheran Church in Livermore, California. And we normally have somewhere between 180 and 300 people attend. It's primarily for lay people, although most pastors attend with their laity that attend. And it is meant to give encouragement, motivation, and some gateways to some practical skills. Some gateways to some practical skills. Also, we had 1,000 CNH Mission Prayer Partners. You might want to sign up for that today. Gives you an opportunity. I've got, what, 3 minutes?
Yeah, a couple minutes here.
3 minutes. You might want to sign up for that today. That's the opportunity. And also LINC Bay Area was begun. Just got a couple of things I want to share with you yet. So the mission that we talked about is we want to plant the gospel. We want to do that through witness in our communities, new starts for new believers, missionary training. All those things speak to one another. And we also want to recognize that how does this take place? It takes place when disciples are multiplied. I was telling Pastor Todd, we had a wonderful Todd Peppercorn, that we had a wonderful example of that here at my father's funeral this summer, of how disciples are multiplied. As people are fed into, and then they make other disciples. And we saw that generationally in our family. My father's family is 41 now. Several of them are very active church members. Some of them are even professional church leaders. But they're very active church members and working on planting the gospel. However, it goes beyond that. We plant the gospel also in others who will also continue to plant it in their families and others as well. As we are witnesses to the faith, you will be my witnesses. Okay. So, I talked about Adis Gedan in church service. This is just a picture of that. This happens to be some of the children. Worshippers, Adis Gedan means New Covenant. It is Amharic, Tigrinian, English-speaking church, Lutheran church, at Bethel Lutheran, Old Bethel Lutheran site on Alamany in the North Mission District. This is Dawid Bokra. I talked about him earlier. He's leading a core group of disciples who are intentionally planting the gospel to the 1.5 second-generation immigrants. What are 1.5? Born somewhere else, grew up here, primary language is English, but there are people with a foot in both cultures. These people are wonderful bridge people between cultures. And so we try to identify them. My daughter is a bridge person between cultures. Not because she's 1.5, but because she's multilingual and she has served overseas for an extended period of time. She still has strong feelings about what is her culture. Okay? So bridge people are really helpful when we go in between. I want to finish now with this. There's a video, and we'll cut this off. You can just leave as you go, as you're out of time, but I just want to share this video with you. I think it will be helpful to you and give you just a picture of something that happened with our School of Young Leaders. It's an overall look. It is a desire to raise up indigenous people. Out of this. There we go.
Unspeakable and true.
So it's how you express yourself, how you show respect to the people you're adulting. Very important.
Bursting inside, we cannot contain. Your love will surely come find us, like blazing wildfire, singing your name. God of mercy, see love mine. I have surrendered to your design. May this offering stretch across the sky. These hallelujah be multiplied.
I show that to you in closing just simply because it was something exciting that happened this summer. It was the launching of the Pioneer class of School of Young Leaders, using about 12 different congregational leaders, pastors around the Bay Area. Many of them, Isaac Schuler, Stuart Crown, Robert Dweller, Chris Ing, many of them speaking, but we were able to educate residentially 9 young adults and helping them to enter into leadership positions. So this is the kind of thing that your CNH district's mission agency, your CNH district is involved in as we continue to try to push out and grow out the education, the witness, the reach into the communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here. We close with the benediction. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the communion of the Holy Spirit be with you all.